Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show, and as often happens on this journey, so much of it is driven through records, and at one time when we had a record-based commerce industry, it gave regional musicians an identity, and in doing so, nowadays you can go into a bookstore and find a record like the one I did called Watch Pocket, and realize that there were a bunch of rabble-rousing scoundrels from Mississippi who put together one of the greatest sounding blue-eyed soul records that I've ever heard in my life. It's off the beaten path, and I was looking at all the accompanists and trying to figure out who's still with us, and the first name I typed in was my next guest. He came right up. I sent him a couple of messages. Next thing you know, we're on the phone. And now we get a chance to do an interview. A decorated guitarist and band leader, Sid Herring. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
How you doing, Jake?
So good to connect with you, man. I would love if you could talk to the audience about what you feel is the Mississippi sound.
Well, being from the Delta in Mississippi, where the blues was pretty everywhere, running everywhere. As I was growing up, I remember. In fact, I got a song on one of my CDs. It's called "Full Circle." It's a blues CD, and it says. It talks about when I was 5 years old, I was listening to the radio, and I was listening to WLAC here in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I am. And they were playing blues, really pure core blues. And I was only 5, 6 years old, and I just remember listening to my radio and thinking, I like the way that feels, And I was a little kid, but I know that I just liked listening to it. And then through my life, living in the Delta, a little bit of this, I'd hear about Robert Johnson, and I'd hear about John Lee Hooker and all these guys, and a little here, a little there. This was kind of going into my, music mind as I was growing up and trying to put all this together. So I didn't really pay much attention to it at first. But later on, after we started the band called the Gants in 65, 64. And, we started playing Beatles music. In fact, we were a part of the British invasion. We toured with the Animals. We did Florida with the Animals. We played with the Dave Clark Five, Young Rascals, and just a number of them. Sam Sham toured with Sam and this and that. But I'm all into the Beatles, okay? I'm just Beatle. They just got me knocked out. And so, but all the while, I'm singing this Beatles stuff, and they're trying to, here's what the fact is. They come and get the music from the fields of the Delta. Mm. They redress it, put a little English accent, a little class, a little quality to it, and then send it back to us, and then we go, crazy over it. And so I'm thinking, well, I'm sitting right here in the middle of it. So I need to start getting attached with this better. I need to bring it up front. And so that's what I did the last few years, and that's kind of what that CD I was talking about, Full Circle. It's about, I wrote a song about Robert Johnson. He's buried right there in Greenwood on Money Road, where I'm from, in the Delta, Cotton Country. Mm. And I go by there quite often to see his grave. And my whole point being that through my life, blues has been rubbing into me. Well, we were known as a Beatle-like group. In fact, I started realizing that I have this blues voice and this knowledge, and I just start trying to do it. Well, it just starts coming out. And so to me, the music of Mississippi is it's like comes from the ground, Yeah. It's just where it just has part of the people in it. what the music feels when they say blues is the people didn't have much money. They were enjoying life. They were partying and doing their thing. So it's kind of a way of life. And so it gradually changed my life. And now I just love blues music. Love all music.
Did you start when you talk about like the original blues, like that was kind of acoustic based singing, and I mean, were you learning your own tuning on the guitar? Did you learn music by ear?
I did, and yes, I was. I did my own tuning. I tell you what, if you ever listen to Robert Johnson very carefully, you need that man. It's hard to tell unless you listen carefully. But that man was a super talent. He could play licks, and he's sitting there playing these lead licks with the rhythm and singing at the same time, and it's just going together like you got a couple of people singing. The man was super talented. And so when I found out about him, I started kind of digging into the roots of him, and he has influenced me tremendously.
Well, no, but I wanted to ask you how your ears, how huge your ears were when the Gantz started, because the thing that's going on today in music is that a lot of younger cats are going into the academy. They're going to the school to learn a certain language. Jazz. You can't learn the language.
You can't.
Okay, I mean that's just my feeling.
Well,
But
you're right.
the thing is, a lot of cats are growing up learning to read music before they learn to hear it, because the music has been codified or been put into some curriculum. Now people are reading before they learn to hear the music. As a result, their ears are locked, and you get this homogenization of sound. As opposed to back then, I can tell Sid Herring from Steve Cropper on that record, just like I can hear and tell, John Mayall from, whoever. Everybody had their own individual sound because everybody was ear trained. And to me, I just wanted you to talk a little bit about where you think your ears grew the most on the bandstand early in your career.
Well, I think it was, again, I go back to the Beatles. We were doing that a lot. Before that, though, before the Beatles came out, we were doing more R&B type song.
Like what kind of, like Hank Ballard and the Midnighters, or like what kind of R&B?
Yeah, well, I don't know. We were doing like Stand By Me.
Yeah, I dig, yeah.
We were doing Monkey Time. I remember we used to do that. And we did just the basic stuff, R&B stuff that was on the radio. And so we were kind of geared into that and going that direction. But when the Beatles came, we went for them. And like I was saying, Tom Petty called us the Mississippi Beatles one time.
Whoa!
On his station,
whoa!
Which was a very cool name. If I'd have had that name before, I might have used it instead of the Gans. But he started. That just really when he did that just kind of things started. We went and did a tour with little Stephen Van Zandt. In fact, we did several with him.
Wow.
And he kind of got the ball going again. He called up, said, come to New York. And, we did a tour of New York and this and that. And then he called up later and took us to Florida with him and toured Florida. And he was really into the blues. Being a New York guy, he really took to the blues, really nice. As far as the ears.
Yeah, because your ears, I mean, to me, like, you have to be able to hear, you have to be able to play every song in every key. I mean, that to me is absolutely essential. I mean, that is what part of repertoire is about. And that's kind of like, was there a point, Sid, where, I mean, it's great to comp Beatles tunes, and believe me, you're not the only band that was influenced by them. But, like, discernibly, like, did you guys reach a point in those bands where you're like, playing cover tunes is cool, but I kind of want to write some original tunes. When did that start to come? When did that come into play? Yeah.
Well, that came out pretty, I don't know why, but right up kind of on the front end.
Mm-hmm.
I asked the guys, I said, I was impressed by the way the Beatles wrote. So I just said, well, I'm going to take a shot at it. Anybody want to work with me?
Why not,
And so I wrote several songs, and they're being played today more on the radio than the cover stuff we did.
Okay, so let's just go through that. This is really important. Let's talk about one song in particular that you wrote, and where did that germ of this for the song? How did it emanate with you? Because the Beatles were, I mean, incredibly gifted in so many ways, and yet they were just singing about real life and their own lives and their own stories.
Yeah.
And can you talk about one song that you wrote that is getting heavy play today, and where it came from?
Well, I had one that it gets good play, still being played today. In fact, it surprises me after 55 years.
That's great.
They still got records on the radio, and they're still being played. But there was one called Smoke Rings that I enjoyed, and it was an upbeat song. And I remember I was riding on a motorcycle with my buddy, and he says, I bet you can't write a song about smoke rings in a wind tunnel. And so I went home and wrote that song.
Oh, boy. I love it, dude.
And I tell you where I got it from. A lot of people don't tell where their inspiration's from. I mean, everybody's inspired by somebody. And if they say they're not, then somebody had to beat the first drum in the jungle,
That's right.
And then somebody heard him and then went from there. Well, I always tell the truth about that. And I think it would be good stories if more people did. But they don't. I heard a song called Get Off My Cloud by the Stones. And I'm a big Stone fan, too.
Dig.
And I heard that song, and that song was just in my back of my mind when I turned that motorcycle and went home to write that song, Can't Blow Smoke Rings in a Wind Tunnel. Stephen Van Zandt liked that so much, too. He liked anything got to do with cigarette smoking.
So, I mean, what was the? I mean, I'm not that. I got to get hip to that tune. But what was it? Why do you think it has resonated so well through the years? Is there like an infectious hook? Is it like talk? I mean, just talk to the audience about maybe just from your point of view, because there's so much in today's music. Nobody really has a story to tell. I mean, there are people that are being appointed as leaders of bands before they've had any experience as a side man. They don't really have a story to tell, and in some ways, a lot of people that are being fronted as band leaders can't even perform live. It's because they look a certain way, or the auto tuning is such. Whereas you guys were just like you said, it was up from the roots. It was part of the soil, And like, how do you account? And if you were going to talk to younger cats today, what are the keys for sustainability in terms of songwriting?
Well, I'd say, first of all, you just got to have a desire on songwriting. Your desire's got to be strong. I just grabbed the guitar and I just started playing something. Mm-hmm. But I got my inspiration, like for instance, I got a song called My Baby Don't Care that that was on the backside of Roadrunner, and it's done real well. And the Beatles song Ticket to Ride says, my baby don't care, my baby don't care. Well, I turned that in. For some reason, when I heard that line at the end of that Beatles song, it just wrote the whole song. I just came out and said, my baby don't care, but I love her anyway. And, I don't know. I really get a big, as far as songwriting, if you don't have a good ear, I put it this way, check your ear before you check your learning ability on how to write music. Because if you don't have a good ear, you're going to have a struggle.
Why?
Well, because whenever... It's like when you're playing by note or by reading, you're seeing, but whenever you play by ear, you're feeling. So if the note hits wrong, you feel it back over to the right place. But on the other pattern, as far as reading, you wouldn't do that. You just keep going straight.
Or it kind of comes down to if you're just reading off a paper, you're kind of just being dictated by the notes on the page, and you're not playing in the moment. I mean, do you subscribe?
You're a messenger. You're a messenger instead of the
conduit, instead of being the conduit.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
Yes.
I was going to say, what do you subscribe to the Miles Davis theory that there are no wrong notes? I mean, to me, you could hit a clam. I mean, I've talked to so many cats that hit a clam on a tune, and yet it got recorded, and that became a hit song.
Sometimes it'll become a style, just a mistake.
And to me, that's all ears, you know.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it becomes cool, you know. Everybody, a different generation sees it a different way and thinks this is cool, and another generation sees it one way and doesn't pick up on it. Like the gimmick of Roadrunner had beep beep in it. That beep beep was worth its weight in gold. Because it just, whenever people heard that, that's where you got your smile, and that's where things really that's where the hook was. But you got to have some little gimmick, some little something that makes people think about it twice. But as far as songwriting, I love songwriting. I'm writing some songs right now. I'm in a possible project. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but we were talking about doing like Beatles songs in a blues style.
Very cool.
Like,
yeah, totally turn them upside down, inside out, you know?
Yeah. I got something to say tonight, call you pain. If I catch you talking to that boy again, I'm going to let you down. Gonna leave you flat. Cause I told you before, baby, oh, you can't be doing that. See, I'm gonna try to take some of those songs.
Dude, you just keep going, man. That's burning, man.
and see if I can turn them into something different. I was gonna take them and spread a little Mississippi on them, you know. Spread a little Mississippi on it, take the Beatle class, and then see what comes out. Now, some people go with that, some people don't like it. Everybody says, well, now, when you do a Beatles song, you got to do it right to the melody. Everything's got to be just right, you know.
No, I don't. I mean, I really feel that people are so. We are so. And this wasn't the case back in the '60s. Obviously, the Beatles and Hendrix and people like that kind of just shook up the normal order. But people today are so comfortable hearing what they recognize, but they don't realize that it's so much hipper to dig what they don't know. And that to me is the most important thing. I mean, you had the Meters doing Stephen Stills tunes back in the day, turning them upside down and inside out. You had Van Morrison doing My Funny Valentine. You had a lot of people doing stuff. Yeah, you can do a cover tune, but make it your own, and stop with this this whole idea of having to hear the song or having to. Anyway, that's a whole other issue. But Sid, I wanted to ask you about how cats can check their ears today, because the thing, we are growing up. You had radio. TV was barely on the surface. You guys, it was really an auditory. Your learning medium was auditory, and now we're saturated with. It's not all bad, but we're saturated with visual learning material. YouTube, for instance, and a lot of that stuff is really mediocre. And so people are, how would you talk to cats about when you say check your ear? What do you mean, and how would you do that today?
Well, it's really hard to put your finger on what it is. It's
Charlie Parker would put on every radio station, country western, and then he'd play all those tunes, and then he'd play those tunes in every key. Like what were the things that you would?
That definitely changes. When you change key, that changes complete emotion of the song when you change keys.
Right.
So I've always been one that stuck with the key all the way. If I had to change keys, then I wouldn't do it. Because when you change a key, you lose something of that song that key gives it.
I did.
And that's elusive and hard to understand, but it's something that your brain tells you, this ain't working. This is working, this ain't working. But, it's tuning your guitar. I remember the first time I thought, oh, my God, I want to learn how to play, but I can't ever learn how to do this when you hit the harmonics and one sounds, there's no waving. There's no, like, you ever been on two motorcycles when one's side by side and all of a sudden one's going a little bit ahead of the other one, then it comes up right beside and you hear that even humming sound?
Oh, man, dude. Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
I wish I did. I'm not really a motorcycle cat, but go ahead, man. Yeah.
Well, it's like a harmony. You got one guy hitting one key and the other one hitting one close to him, and then all of a sudden he pulls up beside him and the keys come together.
I dig.
And they just wave together. You can just feel it in your body when it happens. If you don't feel that in your music, if you can't feel that wave that comes together and just settles together, then I don't think you should be trying to learn music, because you're not gonna. Well, you might be a genius and do really good, but most likely you're not gonna really get the full impact of what music can do for you.
Well, that's a very good point, and you might be great, sort of a savant or some prodigy, but you're just going to wind up wanking in your room. You're not going to be able to play in a band.
That's right. That's right.
How did you? I really would love you. This is so classic because all the cats. I mean, Cannonball Adderley, Coltrane, Alan Toussaint, Earl Palmer, Charlie Neville, Cropper. A few more people. They all started on the R&B circuits before they ever got into playing jazz music. And I just, when you were in the Gants, what was the band after the Gants?
Well, I had, basically it was just after the Gants broke up, Don, the drummer, and that's when I got to Jerry Williams and Steve Cropper. They gave me a call and told me to come on to Memphis, that they want to sign me up. Let's do some work. And boy, that was really good.
Okay. So that I was just wondering if you.
Of Steve.
Before we get to that, did you do? Were you going to the R&B clubs with the Gants? Like, what were the touring circuits like? There were these. I'll get the names in a minute. There was just like Cropper was talking about all these funky R&B clubs up in that Gulf Coast region, and I just wondered, like, what were the tours like that you guys went on?
Well, they vary. It depends, but we played a few R&B clubs, but we didn't play as many as the others because we were playing quite a bit of Beatles English music, and that wasn't quite what they wanted to hear at the time, Most of the R&B stuff that I did was after the Gants, and it was more on my single contract, stuff like that. And it seems like the older, you don't pick up on R&B as much early. Most people don't, until you get a little older, and then it's just kind of start to understand things, and it starts to take over.
No, absolutely. No, so what does that mean? So you were more aligned. How did you get connected to the British, that touring circuit? Would you say that it was those first tours of those English bands? How did you wind up get connecting to those tours?
Well, one of the guys that we played with, Dave Clark 5.
Yeah.
My living in Greenwood, my neighbor about a block away, his name was Mitchell Maloof. He owned Malaco Sounds in Jackson, Mississippi, a recording studio.
Wow.
And he called me one day and says, "Hey, man, I got an opening to play with Dave Clark 5. Would you be interested?" I said, "Hell yeah." And so he booked it. We did it, but that was when things just really kind of cranked up. But in real, how we got with the Animals was really funny. We were at playing a club in Laurel, Mississippi. Well, it wasn't a club; it was a ballroom in a Holiday Inn. And he was paying his bill. We were in a ballroom. Well, he started. York Noble was his name. He heard us and he listened to us. And we took a break, and I went by the lobby there to go to the bathroom, and I came back and he says, "Hey, is that your band in there?" And I said, "Yep." And he says, asked me a name and all this, and then said, "Would you guys mind coming by my room? I want to talk to you about some possible gigs." And he says, "I'm the manager of the Animals."
Holy cow!
I'm thinking, wow, this is cool. In the middle of Mississippi, Laurel, Mississippi. I run into the manager of the Animals. Excuse me. And so he says, we go by the room, and he says, "Okay, I want you guys to do a tour with the Animals and so date, this and that." And that was how we got with them. But here's another one.
Yeah.
Please. We're playing in New York, in Lake George, New York.
Sure.
And I'm in the airport, and there's an airstrike. And, well, anyway, whether it's strike or not, we were booked for like 6 weeks up there. And Mitchell calls me up and says, "Hey, Sid, guess what?" And I said, "What, Mitchell? Ain't no telling what you got." He says, "I got you on with the Beatles. They're playing Memphis so-and-so."
Oh, my
and
God,
dude. Mine, as much as I talk about the Beatles and like the Beatles, I thought, wow, this is going to be great. But then I thought, oh, hell. I was almost accepting the gig when I forgot that we had some other gigs, but we had to finish the other gigs to get to do that.
Oh, so you were booked solid up in Lake George. You couldn't just take off from that gig.
Get away.
Yeah. But I mean, it
yeah.
was going to be like a tour with the Beatles, or just one night in Memphis?
No, it was just the Memphis gig.
Oh my God,
how
you would not have been able to articulate words, dude. You would have been freaking out.
I tell you, man, pictures with them and I can imagine right now seeing us grouping with Paul and John hanging out, looking at that would just blow. That would have been cool. There's another point too. We were up in New York originally when we first started. We were up there working with Liberty, and we go by the billboard or cash box, and he invites us to which is a charge for the music.
Sure.
He says, "Guys, listen, I got something y'all would probably enjoy doing. There's a big party. And Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr are going to be there. And we're going to do this tomorrow night." And I said, we were doing backflips. And so the damn lights went off. In New York, the lights went off.
There was a power outage?
There was a power outage.
Oh, my God. Dude, Sid Herring, dude.
Not a light. What bad luck is that?
Well, I mean, it was really just something that is so unfortunate, man. You would have been.
Tell me about it. That would have been wonderful. Because I really writing. They were the ones that really made me want to write. And as today, I'm so glad I did that. Not to speak of money-wise, because I make a hell of a lot more money. But because I get a kick out of writing today. It's just something about it that's contagious, and it just it occupies your brain, just all the time, some form or another. And so, so basically, you were with the Animals, or you went on tour with the Animals.
Ultimately, when was the first time you crossed paths with Cropper and Al Jackson and Duck Dunn and those cats?
I was basically Jerry Williams. He was he owned TMI Records there in Memphis, Tennessee.
Now, what did that? I am not hip. What did that stand for? I'm not. I mean, everybody knows Stax. I don't know anything about
Trans Maximus Incorporated. TMI in Memphis. It was Jerry's. He had a theater there on Poplar Avenue, I think it was. I tell you, it was a really great studio. In fact, I sat there I sat within 6 feet of Jeff Beck on that Going Down album, and I watched him do about 3 or 4 of those songs. And I'm just, that was just wonderful. I loved watching that guy play. He made the guitar just milk, man. It just kind of, the string just kind of hung on it. I don't know, but he was playing in the middle of a song, and he reached up and he tunes it up while he's in the middle of the cut, and everything comes right back. Today he is still probably one of the most technical players in the world.
Totally.
So
you went.
And then we played with Yardbirds one time. We did a tour with them too. It wasn't a long one, but we played Memphis with them, and I think they had Eric wasn't there then. I think it was Jimmy Page.
This was you as the Gants or a different group?
No, we played with the Gants. We went on tour. We played there in Memphis with them, and the Box Top played too. And then we went to Little Rock the next night and played again with them in Little Rock. That was fun.
So what's this cat's name? Jerry Williams, who had the studio up there?
Jerry Williams had the studio, and he had heard about me through somewhere, and I was working in a studio in Jackson, Mississippi. I think I forget the name of it at the moment, but he was friends with the guy that was running the studio, and he heard some of my stuff, I think, from Mike Daniels. And when he did, he told Mike he was interested, and Mike was folding his studio up. So Jerry came down to Jackson, Mississippi, and asked me if I wanted to come to Memphis and sign. And so we went straight to Memphis, and this was about 1970. And we cut, I don't know how many songs. We probably cut 60 songs. And that Watch Pocket album is part of them. But the Watch Pocket album was part of, and then Steve, when I got there, Steve was with Jerry, part of the whole TMI outfit.
Well, I'm curious because, like, I thought Steve was on staff at Stax. He was. Yeah.
But that changed, and when all the contract ran out, and when Knock on Wood,
right,
and Wilson Pickett and Midnight Hour and all that stuff, I think after that they all went different ways,
Sure.
And then when they did, I think Jerry picked up on Cropper, when Cropper's a legend.
Oh well, I mean the man is just incredible. I mean, hold on a second. So you went up there, you took the whole band up there and recorded about 60 tunes.
Yeah, we lived there for about 4 or 5 years.
Oh my God.
And we went up there, and it wasn't a band. The other man, Johnny, was a doctor. He went to be a doctor, the rhythm guitar player.
Yeah.
My best friend, he went on to be a doctor, and I think Vince became an attorney, and Don and I went to Memphis, and we formed another band up there.
How did you find the cats in that band? Who were they?
That was, it depends. Sometimes I think we used 2 or 3 different groups of guys. So I never did. It was me as a single, and I had different pickers, and there was a lot of people involved on that Watch Pocket album. I mean, it became a community type situation. I invited a lot of people over into join me, people like Sarah Fulcher, which is one of the artists that was working with TMI, and she was really a hell of a singer. Yeah,
why do I know that name? Why I know that name.
She's from Texas originally, but she was living in Memphis and, working TMI. And like I said, if you ever heard her sing, she is a knockout. And she's back in Texas now, but
wow. I mean, she's a
TMI.
Wow. I mean, did you like I've been listening to that album today. It's still when that came out. Did any of those songs get radio play at all?
You know what's funny, and I don't know how this happened. I think it was Jerry's fault. But the song Mammy Blue, excuse me, the song Mammy Blue wasn't even on the album, and that's the one that was released. And it got some airplay, quite a bit, but it just didn't catch on. And so we put out another one, People All Around Me. I wrote one, and then we put out one called Down by the River. But in reality, they put them out, but they didn't put a lot of promotion behind them. And when a song shows promise, and it goes to, say, I've had a couple of them. I had one called You're My Vanity. It's like an orchestra, a real ballad orchestra-like thing. And it was like being played in 20 states and was going up the charts. And one of the guys that were playing on it heard this song being played in Nashville. He was in the union. He called up and said he didn't get paid for it. Somehow he shut the whole thing down. The budget just went to hell. But my original point was, once a song is, you get to a certain point where the song climbs the ladder by itself, it has to have some help once it steps over on the big ladder.
Oh, absolutely.
And it didn't get enough help,
How did you, was it one of those things where like somebody called you and was like, Sid, man, you're getting radio play in Chicago. Like there was no way we weren't all interconnected. That was sort of the magic of it, that you would find out later that another part of the country was playing your tune,
Yeah, that was wonderful. I tell you what's a good feeling is I remember when I was riding in my car, had me a brand new car. We were styling. We were cool. We thought we were
yeah, well,
cool.
you were using the budget. You had money,
That's right. And I had 3 or 4 friends with me. We were riding there in Greenwood, and all of a sudden we're listening to WLS in Chicago, and all of a sudden I hear my song come on, Roadrunner. And all my friends, we all start partying, yelling, having a big time. I mean, it's like exhilarating when you hear yourself on the radio for the first time. And then he has Bo Diddley there with him, and Bo Diddley wrote Roadrunner. And so he asked Bo Diddley, he says, Bo Diddley, he says, what do you think? How do you think they were making that Roadrunner sound, where he just took off? That sound so good. And Bo Diddley says, well, I figured that had to be some electrical device. and I started laughing, and we went to a phone real quick, and I tried to call up and get through because I wanted to talk to Bo Diddley. But I never managed to do it. But it was that was a really good night because got to hear Bo Diddley talk about it and was listening to it on the radio for the first time. So that just, you never forget moments like that.
What, tell me, I mean, obviously you were privy to, all the Eric Burden, Jeff Beck, Cropper. What was a situation, like, did you ever find yourself, at least, I mean, not that you would, try to channel these cats, but, like, what was the closest thing you came to playing what you might say is like fusion music, like John McLaughlin or Wes Montgomery or Kenny Burrell? Like, can you talk a little bit about those influences? I hate labels, but I guess for lack of a better word, like jazz influences.
Well, I haven't done very much of jazz. I did have one player that played with me, Austin Meeks. He was really good at that. Could play all those different forms of chords, and haven't really been too close to the jazz part of it. I mean, we played New Orleans several times, and but we just played our stuff. We never really went into jazz. We played some pretty tough clubs in the early days. But
can you talk about that? I'd love to hear the early days in New Orleans. Tell me a story about that.
Well, we were. I remember one time we were in a record bookstore, and they had us back in the back of the store playing, and it was just kind of a trip. The people on the street would stop, and I remember, and they would kind of come in and gang around. It was just cool because I remember one time we were playing in Memphis and we were on Beale Street. We were setting up. They called us, radio station had us sitting up outside of B.B. King's and the Blue City Cafe right there on Beale Street.
Sure.
And so we started playing, and I had some really good pickers, too. And I invited all the street players to come play with the trumpet and all this stuff.
Wow.
And we started playing. I got there late, so we didn't get started till about, I got some traffic, real bad traffic. It didn't get started till about almost 11. And, man, when we cranked up, these people were drunk. They were drinking, and they were primed to go. I don't know what happened. We started playing, and everybody comes out of the clubs, and they all come to the streets. And the streets fill up. We got all the street players, and it just, when we stopped, they just roared.
Wow.
I'll never forget. But the club owners didn't like that too much. I think they went to somebody and complained, and so that they shut down any street playing in front of any clubs from now on.
Sid, if you were,
all our fault.
well, I mean, it's always the fear of losing order is so out of control in this society. If you were starting out today, Sid, would you pursue music? And I only ask that because I'm 44, and I have a lot of my friends and that are road dogging it, and that's the only way. There's no record industry anymore. You don't get any money for intellectual property rights. There is no studio scene. So the only way you can really make any money, if you make it, is at the merchandise table and getting in a bus and doing 30 shows in 32 nights. And it's really hard. And I just, how, when you look back at, I mean, yeah, your budgets weren't huge, but, who hipped you to, like, publishing? And, like, basically you still see royalty checks today. And I just wonder if I wonder if you would do the same thing in today's world if you were just starting out. It was the cost of living was very reasonable at that time. You could really get ahead.
Yeah. Well, as far as, give me your point again, because I was a little confused.
I didn't phrase it very well. Knowing what you know today about the scene, would you still pursue music today? Because I just don't see it. If you're Steve Miller or Tower of Power or Steve Van Zandt, like that, the top 1%, they're doing great. But I'm just talking about starting out as an authentic, creative musician. Would you do it today?
I tell you what. Here's this was my motto. I started playing music because I love it. That's why I play music today. I told the band, I says, listen, guys, you got to love this. If you don't love it, then we're wasting our time. I said, don't worry about making any money. Forget making money. That if we're good enough, the money will show up. But if you're not focused on what you're selling, then you need to go to do something else. So
I did.
That was my attitude right off the bat.
You feel like it was your purpose in life.
Yes, yes, and I still do. And music, without music, I wouldn't be the same person. It's literally formed who I am, without a doubt. And I'm very proud of it, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, I think it's probably kept you healthy and kept your spirit alive.
It has.
Mm-hmm. How many of those cats, like from Mississippi, are still around? Not even the drummer.
Well, my band, the Gants, they all died kind of within a couple of 3-4 years apart.
Wow.
It was like we're doing New York, we're traveling with little Stephen Van Zandt doing this, and then they all three came down with some Johnny got Alzheimer's, and so they all died. So
Sid Herring, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
How you doing, Jay?
I'm doing good, man. It's good to hear your voice. Can you talk about, when you in the studio scene, if you always tried to make it a point as a leader to have human beings playing live at the same time, and so minimal overdubs and no electronic drum machines. Did you try to stay as pure as possible? Because by, I don't know, 1980 or so, a lot of that was changing.
Yeah, we did. Honestly, back when we did the Roadrunner album, the Stones were the first one to come out with a fuzz tone.
Right.
And we had some sounds on our, as a matter of fact, smoke rings. This fella from, I think he's from Nashville, he came up and he had this rig. And what he did was he took this speaker, took a microphone, had a fan up, and you sang through the mic, and it went through a fan. and then he would, have another mic on the other side of it, and it made this waving-like sound. So in reality, we didn't have any of the gadgets they have nowadays. Even a fuzz tone was like new and fancy. I remember there was a fellow in Greenwood that came up with the fuzz tone before we ever heard the Stones do it.
Who was that? There's always somebody who did it, but there's always somebody before the people who get credit for it,
That's true, but this guy was an inventor, and there's generally somebody that comes up with the idea, whatever the invention is.
Right.
They'll come up with it first, but it's the one that follows through with it and actually makes it happen.
That's right. That's totally right.
Makes the difference.
Mm-hmm.
They're great ideas, but to follow through is the hard part.
Absolutely. I was actually talking more about you had a couple of singles released off that Watch Pocket album on TMI, but then the next time you come up as a leader, at least on the website, is 1980. And I just wonder, first of all, did you actually make any albums in between the work you did at TMI in 73 and then in 1980? And then also those records, 80, 81, did you feel like you were in a foreign country, or did you basically have a situation where you were able to get everybody in the room to hit at the same time?
Well, I tell you what I did. I had a band when I was working at TMI, and then when we'd worked at this for a while, we got started it up a little bit, but we didn't quite reach the top of anything. But I remember that I had a band and had about a 5-piece group, and we had a gig in Memphis, and we were doing the gig. Well, the singer, didn't show up. And
that's my favorite show. That means Sid Herring's got to go. It's all instrumental at that point.
Yeah, well, we did the gig, and so what happened from that, and what I came to from that point, we moved back home to Mississippi, Greenwood, Mississippi, and I started doing a single. And in my single act, I had an Ovation nylon string, and I had an electric drummer like you were talking about. And I had a cabinet where I would set it on the floor, and then I would open it up, and it was kind of like a V,
Mm-hmm.
And then I had my microphone would come out, and a couple of lights would flip, had a phase shifter, had fuzz tone, volume control, and all this stuff. So that was when I really got into the technical part of it. But to be honest with you, my drummer was one, and I called him Harvey Wallbanger, because he could.
Gosh, that's a great name. Yeah. Wait. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Anyway, he would. This electric drummer would keep me tight, so that really helped me. I did that for about 6 years. I did it until I was blue in the face. I just got tired of hearing myself sing and on that nylon string guitar, and Harvey too. So that was a hell of an experience as far as learning to deal with the technical part of some of this way they go about things nowadays. But as far as sessions are concerned, no, you'd bring what you got, whatever little you got, but generally they'd have stuff at the studio and have some things that you might not have seen before with you. So we'd go through the studio and kind of get to different things for different sounds. But we did have this guy that came that I was telling you about with the fan and everything. He came with a bunch of sounds, and as far as sounds and stuff is concerned, and different techniques on that, we were just from scratch. It just wasn't.
Oh, I know. I'm focused on. It looks like 45. Do It in the Name of Love, Feeling in Love, 1980.
Okay, I know the ones you're talking about.
Yeah, so like at that point, had you become were you done with the Harvey Wallbanger at that point? Did you have a real drummer on this 45?
No, I had real drummers on those. The Wallbanger part was just for live gigs, doing singles.
Oh, real? You were playing live with a drum machine?
Yep, long time ago, back in 70. I think I started doing that in about 74 or 5.
Whoa, dude! Wait, hold on a second. It was you with a nylon string guitar, and you'd have the Harvey Wallbanger. Did you have a bass player, or that was just you and drums?
Nope, that was just me and drums.
Oh my God, that is sick.
I played with my fingers, and so I used my thumb for a lot of the bass. And you do a chord, your thumb's always up there where the bass is.
Jeez.
But it worked pretty good. I mean, I had a pretty good show. I did songs like And I Love Her. And, I did a lot of different stuff. I did some ZZ Top.
Wow.
And it worked with the drummer, and you got a little bass on there. And I did a variety of stuff with that. And I played every weekend when I was doing that. I bet I didn't miss 4 or 5 weekends in 6 years. In fact, I played myself to where, like I said, I just got sick of hearing myself play. And then I wanted a band. Then I went back to the band scene.
Now, who was in this new band that you put together? Was it the same cats as before or different?
No, I had that song. You were talking about the song Do It in the Name of Love.
Yeah.
That got some pretty good airplay around the country. I think 20 State picked that up, and it got on a few charts here and there. But it ran into the wall on some technical stuff that it came to a point to where it needed a big promotion, and the managing company that I was with just didn't follow through with it. The team, you got to have a team. It's not like you can just go out there and make a hit. You got to have people working with you that supports you and gives you direction and stuff like that. I've always been a band person. I did the singles just because I got frustrated with band and having to keep people, get them to show up and this and that and what have you, replace people and everything. But I was offered many offers from New York back in the early days to do the single thing, and I just turned it down.
Can you talk about some of the offers you got, or one in particular? Why did you turn it down?
Well, we did some stuff together. I just ended up being. I love being with my friends. Mm-hmm. I love having some feedback. I have somebody to bounce it off of. Doing this by yourself, nobody to bounce it off, kind of get. You really can bog down and get in a hole that's really hard to get out.
Oh, I dig. No, you're making it. But I mean, you know what it is. You know what it is. Like, can you just I guess it was Muscle Records. Is that right?
Yeah, it was Muscle Records. That's what one of them was on.
Was that in Greenwood, or where was that located?
No, that was in Nashville. I used to come back and forth to Nashville all the time. I got a song called "You Are My Fantasy," and it's an orchestra song, and it was a good song. I didn't see a thing where it got played quite a bit in the nation, but it came around to the promotion thing, and then we had some union people that heard that song here in Nashville on the radio and didn't get paid for it. Then that brought up another problem. So it wasn't involved with me. It was involved with management that I
Hmm.
was using at the time.
Tell me a little
And
bit. I want you to talk to younger cats, especially. Like, you wanted to be around your friends, you wanted to play music, but musicians are not. You know, that's one part of the team. In order to actually promote records and have people look out for you with more business savvy, that requires like a larger team.
yes,
And it sounds to me like. Um, I guess maybe having hindsight and being able to sort of step back from it. If there's a band, and there's many of them out there today that are trying to write creative, authentic music, who are the most important people to have around them, not that are not musicians, as part of the team?
well, songwriters are always good. Uh, Having great songwriters around you. That was one of the problems at TMI. We had some good songs, but we needed a little extra help on some of the songs. That was what I felt at a certain point. But it just takes a variety of people. I mean, when we started, it was like old school totally. There was no, it was pretty much all you. We put a record on the radio. People heard it. They liked it. They told their friends, and the next radio station did it. And that was the way we broke it. One radio station at a time. And it was us that was doing the promoting. It wasn't a promotion company.
How were you? No. So how like you were like basically orders would come in and you were mailing records out of your house? I mean, how did you do that?
Well, we've done that some. We've done that. That becomes a big job.
Dude, believe me, there were cats that they were part of these really cool small jazz labels, and they got a song that took off, and they had just boxes of records in their house, and they didn't even have it. They couldn't do it all.
Yeah, it's something to keep up with, especially if you got a hot song going.
So a label that has good distribution is what I'm hearing. That's one thing you need.
Yeah, well, now Liberty, they had that. I'll give them credit there. They took us to the warehouse one time, and they showed us what their plan was, how many they had made, how fast they could make more, and they just dominated. Pertizzi, the manager that we had early on in the Gants, took us to Memphis one time. We went to the warehouse and saw how that worked. But that's a job. It's a job by itself. But if you got enough people looking for the record deal, if they want it, they all want it at the same time. So you got to have somebody to turn it out pretty quick.
Did you? I mean, you never. It's interesting. Like, how did you know? Like in 80, 81, when you made those tunes that were getting radio play in 20 different states, can you talk about how you even knew you were getting radio play? It doesn't sound like Muscle Records had much of an operation going on.
No, they didn't.
They didn't even pay the session cats in Nashville. So, I mean, how did you know? Did someone just call you and be like, "Yo, Sid, I'm hearing your song in Washington State"? How did that work?
I would get some radio reports. You know how they'll have their list. So I would get some people, radio stations. I even did some promotion myself, and so I would call some of the radio stations and just introduce myself, and then they would send me one of their pages on the rank of songs, 1, 2, and 3. And show me what the charts were. So I had them sending them to me while here and there. There wasn't computers or anything like that. So that they did send me some stuff from the radio stations themselves reporting on what was selling, what was on the charts, what was going up. And every time you got one that went up 10, it was called a bullet. You get a bullet. And we went on, I think we went on charts in the 90s. And we moved on up several bullets. We got on up On Billboard, it went to like 38 or 37 or something like that. Well, actually, it went further than that. And on Cashbox, it went to like 38, and on Billboard, it went less than that.
On Do It in the Name of Love or You Are My Fantasy, or which tune?
No, that was Roadrunner. Do It in the Name of Love was getting on the bubbling charts. They got on the charts and was just fixing to bounce on the charts when they had promotion and budget problems.
Oh, that is so. I mean, can you talk about Sid? I mean, obviously, like you found your purpose in life early on, and some people will spend their whole lives trying to figure out what they're doing here. But can you just talk about how you dealt with that kind of disappointment in the music racket? I mean, that to me is like, that's unacceptable, and it happens so much. Something's about to take off. Something's about to take off, and then the company or whatever it is, budget problems and nothing, and then the momentum gets stunted. And how have you dealt with adversity through your career?
Well, first of all, my love of music has just been dominating for me. Every part of it was just extra. Anything other than me and what I got out of my music was just gravy on the side. And so I was just proud to be involved. As far as the other part was concerned, I was not going to be, I was just driven. The music itself had me so driven that it was like there was no obstacles. Whatever obstacle comes up, I'd get over that and then just take on the next obstacle. But there's no pattern way to go about it. Nowadays, people go, like here in Nashville, they go to work at 9 o'clock or whatever, 9, 10 o'clock, and then they work till, through the day. And then they'll go from place to place, from publishing company to company, from studio to studio, just doing this, walking the streets one step at a time. And that's just the process. It's pretty much still that way. But with the internet and all of that, it's a lot different. But back in the day, you never knew where the next break was going to come from. Like I told you on this first part of the interview about we were in Laurel, Mississippi, and we ran into York Noble, and he was the manager of the Animals. And he heard us, in the back in the Holiday Inn. They were playing, and he pulled me to the side and said, "You want to play with the Animals? Go touring with them." And of course, we said yes. So, a lot of leaves turn, a lot of things fall, and some things fall against you, some things fall for you. The more people you get, the more clout you got for financial or demand, you're going to have a lot better chance of being successful. But even if you got the greatest music in the world, if you don't have the right people and platform to put that out, you don't have anything. Everything has to work right. All cylinders have to be pumping at the same time to make this thing work right. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. It's different nowadays because if you're really good, like Justin Bieber or somebody, you put a video or whatever on the internet, and people go crazy. If 2 million people come on, then that gives you clout. That means when you go to deal with the record company, you're in a better position to do that. But nowadays, the first level floor like that is not anything. You have to go to level 3.
Yeah, and I also just think that, like, so many people are being anointed as pop stars or whatever, and they can't even really play, or they can't even really sing. I
know it.
And that's the problem. That's what makes it, the fact is there's just so many authentically brilliant cats who are churning out original music, and yet it's so heady and cool that it's missed because we live in such an inauthentic time, because people are, they're just dolling people up, with auto-tune just because of the way they look or the amount of followers. I mean, to me, it's back when you made a record. I mean, I don't care if it was at Stax or Atlantic or, Chess. I mean, there was a certain threshold you needed to meet in order for that record to come out. It wasn't just going to come out. So, like that to me is the most disturbing part is the idea that there are people that are being propped up as not that, I mean, I just know that you had to have the goods when you were coming up in order to get a record to come out. What happened after that is, could have been very sketchy. But nowadays, people that have no experience as an accompanist are being given the keys to the castle, and and they have no experience. So chances, to me, it's just, and it's not really an area that I wade into a lot. But but my friends today, the only way you can make music. Money in music today, Sid, and you know this. I mean, there's no intellectual property rights to speak of. There's no studio scene. So if you're making original music, the only way you're going to actually make some money is by renting a big bus, going on 30 shows in 34 days across the country, grueling, no roadies. You're packing up your own gear.
Right.
I mean, did you have that experience? Can you talk about when you a good road dog memory with the Gants or anybody else? Like, were you guys doing that? You weren't maybe.
Oh yeah. I remember one time we went. As a matter of fact, was when we toured with the Animals. We had a station wagon. We didn't have a bus, and Vince had his big old bass amp speakers on top of the station wagon. We're going down the highway, and we look back, and all of a sudden there's that big, huge amp just end over end rolling like crazy down the
highway. That's class, because that's what happened to Art Blakey. You have the drums tied to the top of the car; they're falling off.
Yeah. You better make sure they're tied good. But it's unreal. The thing survived. It didn't even break up.
Wow.
So we put it back on, went and played the gig. So that was a hell of a deal. But other than that, we've been pretty good on stuff. We've had we've had it. We hadn't had that much trouble as far as technical stuff. We were just we'd go with the music so much. Back then, there just was guitar and amp. There wasn't a whole lot of technical stuff and monitors and all this. We'd set up the PA and we were ready to go in a matter of a few minutes.
Do you feel like, can you talk about how you tuned with your heart, as opposed to needing, everything's got to be tuned in the right key? Did you have your own?
Yeah.
Cause to me,
I do.
Yeah, because back in the day, Alan Toussaint told me, he's we used to tune with our heart. And that was, and I just want you to talk about that, because it's a missing, because everybody has we have state-of-the-art sound systems in clubs now. We have, sound checks, and here you guys are just showing up and, plugging in and ready to go because you were comfortable with your own sound. How did you learn to get?
I had a harmonica in G, and that was my security note right there. So I would always go to that, and then I'd tune the G and then work the rest of my strings on the guitar as far as keeping everything in tune. But we didn't have tuners or anything like that. And then after a while, you get to where you can hear when it's out. You can't be totally accurate, which I like a totally accurate tune. But generally, you can hear, if you hear something out, you can just reach up there and fix it. But nowadays, with these tuners and deal, it's a different deal. I prefer going with them because you get a total accurate tuning, and it just makes a lot of difference. I saw a Gibson the other day where all you got to do is, I think, you stroke the guitar, just all the strings, and they all go round, 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 tunes itself just like that in a matter of seconds. Now that would have been a trip, but. I don't know. That is probably if you start playing guitar, probably the hardest part of that is people get their guitars out of tune because they're sitting there picking them so hard and learning, and then they never get them back in. Then they get discouraged and quit.
Right.
You know, and that.
Yeah, like did it take you? I think it takes a long time for you to tune your. Did it take you like a year when you first picked up the guitar? Like how long did it take?
Yeah, it took me a while. It took me more like a couple of years to really get to where I could listen to it and tune it. You know.
Yeah, right.
But then I went to 2 or 3 different ways of tuning. I had like where you got like this. You got like. Let me see. And then you got the harmonic, which is. Can you hear that?
Yeah, I can.
Now that's pure. When you use those harmonics, you're going to get the pure sound. But I just used that G harmonica anytime I had any doubt, and that was what the whole band tuned to.
Did you ever run across like Russell Smith and the Amazing Rhythm Aces?
No, but I've met some of those guys here in Nashville. They played up here at 3rd and Lindsley, place I played a lot here in Nashville. I can't remember that guy's name.
Yeah, there's a guy named James Hooker, and then Russell Smith. That was a great. I'm just wondering, like, because there were some amazing bands that came out of that whole southern region there.
Oh yeah, some of those. That was a good band, Amazing Rhythm Aces. They, like I said, they played 3rd and Lindsley quite a bit.
Third and so that was
3rd
that.
and Lindsley is the place here in Nashville.
Oh, dude, I'm sorry. I have been there, believe it or not. I was there for an epic concert. I love that venue.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's a great. No, I mean, like, what was the? Were you going to like the Bluebird Cafe back in the day? Do you remember the clubs?
Yeah, I did. I've been there quite a bit.
Wow.
We used to go there and listen to the songwriters, and all that. And used to go there quite often, but I haven't been there in years now.
I'm just curious about, like, the guys in Nashville, like the late great Kenny Malone on drums. I'm just curious if you who were the studio cats you used when you were recording in Nashville?
Well, Charlie McCoy was one of them. He's a harmonica player.
Oh, yeah.
And Charlie could play anything.
Dude.
That
dude.
Album,
wow.
I think he played something on there. I can't remember which song it was, but he played something on there. And then we were in a studio here in Madison, Tennessee, part of Nashville. I'm trying to think. There was one other guy.
It was like Kenny Buttry, or.
Don't think that's it. I said here. I was talking about him the other day with somebody.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I can't remember his name.
Was it like Norman Putnam or something?
Norbert and I, we worked together quite a bit. We've cut several tunes together.
Are you kidding me?
No, matter of fact, I'm going to see Norbert this weekend.
No, you're not.
I'm going to see him Friday.
Dude,
to his house.
We're
going to Fame Studios. We're going to Muscle Shoals, Alabama Friday for a tour of all the studios of Muscle Shoals. And that's where we cut Roadrunner, was at Fame Studios. And we're going to see where Jimmy Johnson, the engineer, producer, he was the one that produced it to me, the Roadrunner album. He was involved with producing the Jumpin' Jack Flash album with the Rolling Stones. He produced the Silver Bullet album with Bob Seger. Oh. And we were his first project he ever did. As a matter of fact, when we were in Fame Studios, we were the second group to record at Fame Studios in Muscle Shoals. And right after me, or right after the Gants, it was Aretha Franklin, and after her, I think it was Wilson Pickett. Man, he just got good, really good. You're saying
the Gants were his first project?
We were the first. We were the second project that Fame ever did.
You have to be. That is insane.
That's a great place too, man. It's a great place, and nothing fancy about it. But it's like I was reading something the other day. It was like, I don't know, they had a sign or something on the door. It says, "When you walk through these doors, prejudice disappears."
Yeah, you know, and that's
so
the
anything like that.
yeah, man. I'm with you, man. You know, it was the Stax had the same kind of philosophy. You know, it was you guys were people were brothers in there.
Hey,
you know,
music makes everybody equal. Everybody equal.
Yeah, that's why that's why the powers that be are so distrusting of it. You know, because they want to keep people separate. You know.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear you. Music is magic, I think.
There's only two letters that separate magic and music, Sid Herring, and that's it.
I hear you.
Hey, you know, I just last question for you, man. I just, you know, what is the legacy of Sid Herring? What do you want people in 50 years to know about? I mean, to me, like, my show is a reliquary. I mean, I'm housing and archiving many luminary names and a lot of unsung, completely badass musicians. And to me, you know, a record of this is so important because some hungry musician is going to stumble across some Sid Herring record and see if you know, and look you up and listen to this interview. And so what do you want people to know about your legacy?
Well, I just want. That's a lot of.
I mean, you might still be here in 50 years. I mean, who knows? You know, but it's like, but I guess you know what it is like. I mean,
if I am, I'm gonna be something special.
That's okay, man. I mean, I think that you lived a musical life. I mean, you were driven by the music, but
I would say that when I started and fell in love with music, I haven't for a moment thought about quitting. I've stayed with this 1,000% from the time I started, and so the test of time is the best test of anything for your music. And here we are talking about these songs that I cut, and it'll be almost 55 years at Spain Recording Studios, 55 years later.
That's right. That's a very good point. It's like, how does it hold up over time? How does the music sounds as fresh today as it maybe more than it did back then?
Well, sometimes you get too close to it. You look at it and you kind of think, well, you know, this is not my, I think I could do a little better. Then when you back off and you let it sit on the shelf for maybe it might take you a year or two, and you come back and listen again, your head's changed. You're looking at it from a different point. And you might think, what in the hell was I thinking? This is good.
Sometimes it takes 10 years, man, not just a year.
You're right.
But dude, you're so, and that goes for any style of music. You know, you get too close to it right off the bat, you tuck it away.
Yeah.
You keep doing your back off. Yeah. You back off, and then you put it back on. You're like, damn, this is okay, man.
That's right. And sometimes you can trick yourself like that. And so, you know, be aware of that. Don't get discouraged because at the moment things you're not getting a lot of response. You know, people's head changes, things change. So, you know, it might be on down the line before you get any. That's why on I Wonder, I don't know till today. I don't know today why I Wonder didn't go on one of those Roadrunner on the Gant albums in the beginning. Instead, I liked the song. It came out quick. It all went well. It got put on the shelf, and then later on used on the backside for something else. You know, and it's one of the better songs I've ever written. And I'm thinking we're cutting this record, and we took the best song I ever wrote and put it on the shelf. It was a good song, you know. So that just goes to show that you can't really tell. Your opinion is not the total judgment.
Exactly. You know, I think that's the legacy is stay the course, keep creating, because you really don't know what will age like a fine wine. You know, stuff that you think might be incredibly hip never really takes off with the general public, but then something else that you kind of discarded or didn't take that seriously just explodes, you know?
I've had that happen. I've had some things happen like that you know, I thought, oh, that's not going to work. And all of a sudden it starts paying off. So you just never know, but you can't. You got to be in it for the long haul. If you think you're going to come into this business and go in there, now there are some that do it, but it's very rare, especially nowadays, and just go boom right at the top, unless you got this super talent. I mean, a lot of kids nowadays do have that, and they got that, you know, they'll knock you backwards with their talent. But unless you got that talent, you know, it can be a hard run.
Yeah, and I also feel like, I mean, that talent is, I mean, that doesn't mean huge facility or chops. That to me means like grabbing the audience by the scruff of the neck and getting them to pay attention to what you're doing. And that's really,
exactly right.
that sometimes just comes from the life force of a person, has nothing to do with talent.
Yes, it's hard to put your finger on what magic that is, but once it gets in everybody's head, it's once it goes like,
oh, forget it. It's a wildfire.
You know, it's just gone. Yeah. That's right. You can't no control it. I mean, if it's good, and it's gonna jump all over you. So.
Sid Herring, man, I love hanging with you, man. We got to do this again, man.
Well, same here. I enjoyed it as well, Jay.
It's really cool, man. I'll get this up later tonight. Also, do you have any contact with Sarah Fulcher anymore?
You know, I got her on Facebook. I can go to Facebook and see if I can.
Can you ask her if I can connect with her for an interview if she's interested? I couldn't. Kind of my jaw is still hanging open that you guys collaborated.
Yeah, let me see here. I've got Sarah. Let me see what I got here. Right, if you got a second.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to do it right this. So, I mean, just let me know if anything. I just would love to do an interview with her.
Yeah, I hear you. She's a good one.
Yeah.
I'll have to.
Shoot her a note. Shoot her a note when you can, and then I'll call you next week and we'll figure it out.
There you go, and I got it on Facebook. I'll get that for you, and we'll go from there.
All right, yeah, and say hi to Norbert, dude. I'm coming for him too, man. He can't hide forever.
Well, I'll tell him. He'll be glad. He always likes to do interviews.
Well, no, because I know, please hook it up with that, because that dude, I cannot believe you guys were cooking at Fame Studios, man.
Yeah, well, Norbert's been around forever.
I know. Well, he played with Elvis, dude.
Beatles, you know,
the Elvis,
everybody. We talk on a regular basis. He really.
Okay. So let's. If you can get me to Norbert and Fulcher, man, that'd be unbelievable.
Okay, well, I'll see about doing it. You give me a call back.
I'll give you a call next week, Sid. Much love to you, man.
I'll do that. Okay, Jay.
Hey, be cool, man.
Appreciate it. Enjoyed all the.
I really enjoy talking to you, brother.
You too.
Be cool.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.